It's a very capitalistic outlook on life these days, right? The people in power, they want you to just do the 9 to 5, go to work, finish your work, come home, watch some TV, watch some drama, have your dinner, go to sleep and repeat that every single day of your life, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. As soon as you start to get fed up on Friday, go 2 days, here's your break. There's the break for the slaves, go and do what you want. Go and get drunk, that's what most people do these days. Go to the pub, go to the clubs, get drunk, forget about life. Forget about life, escapism, escape. And then wake up again Monday morning and repeat the cycle over again. This is what I call it modern day slavery.
Now, when we say someone completely submits to someone else, or someone's completely under somebody else's will, then in the social sense, we actually consider that a form of slavery. In any other context, to take God out of the picture, when someone is in complete submission to somebody else's will, they do what somebody else says, regardless of what area of life. In our jobs, there's at least a job description. Right? So if you're an accountant, sorry to pick on accountants, then you're only working a certain number of hours, and you're not going to be asked to mop the floor unless the economy is really bad. You're going to be, there's a particular set of things you're supposed to do. Beyond that, if you're told to do them, you say, oh, that's not my job. I'm just an accountant, right? But when you're in absolute submission to another entity's will, in other words, you're in slavery, well, a slave owner can turn to the slave and say what? Mop the floor, do the accounting, wash the windows while you're at it, do my laundry, whatever. He cannot be told, well, that's beyond my job description, right? And obviously, I'm using the term slavery, and it has negative connotations. But I want you to understand something. That in one sense, we do actually proudly accept willing slavery to God as Muslims. We actually call ourselves abd in Arabic, literally meaning slave. I can't give you a politically correct translation. That's what it is.
Now, I'm going to give you the simplest way of breaking down these ideas. And what we're going to see throughout today is that when you deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you live a life without Allah, life makes no sense. Everything breaks down. Everything breaks down. They come to us and they say, how can you believe in a God, the being you can't see? You're claiming almost a conspiracy. No, how can you make such a claim that everything you have, including yourself as a human being, and your ability to reason that you're demonstrating right now, is a result of blind, random physical processes? Does everyone understand? How can you claim that? It makes no sense. Another thing I want us to appreciate and understand is this. As soon as you say you're an atheist, and as soon as you say there is no God, as soon as you say, I don't believe in a creator, there is no God, there is no Allah, everything is just physical and we are just an accident of this physical process and we're here and we're going to die. As soon as you say this, there is no more meaning in life, there is no more purpose in life, there is no ultimate happiness anymore. Think about this. If you and me are just accidents, physical accidents, then where is the purpose? Where is the ultimate purpose? There is no purpose. Where is meaning? put yourself in that position for a second. Is there any meaning to life? And don't take my word for this. All you have to do is go on Google tonight, search atheist forums, and you will see many people that become atheist or leave religion, they're leaving comments like, oh, I'm depressed. There's no meaning to life. I feel empty right now. You know, I just feel like this physical piece of meat. There's nothing to my life anymore. I was just drinking and trying to forget about everything, but, you know, I can't do it. Can someone help me? Can someone advise me? How do I get over this? There's videos on YouTube, atheists saying how to combat early stages of depression when you accept atheism. I'm not saying all atheists are depressed, but there is this common trend that you see, because when you go against your very nature as a human being, you're going to fall into this. Yeah, you're going to fall in. You can't escape this. You can't escape this reality. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does Allah tell us in the Quran? Don't be like those who forgot Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah made them forget themselves. Yeah, Allah tells us, you forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will forget yourself. You'll forget what you are, who you are. You'll forget this. Allah tells us in the Quran that those that turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those that turn away from the remembrance of Allah, they have constricted, difficult, depressed lives.
I'll tell you one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my life. One of the most depressing experiences of my life. You'll be surprised. It was Hajj. Hajj, and I've only done one Hajj. And it's supposed to be the most joyous occasion of my life, and I was very depressed. Eventually I was happy, but I was very depressed. You know why I was depressed? Because there were VIP sections. I was depressed because there were people with a different kind of passport treated differently. I was depressed because, people were not concerned about each other at all. If you wanted to take somebody and say, if you told somebody, in Islam, everybody is treated equally. In Islam, the wealthy and the poor, and the black and the white, they're all the same. We are all slaves of Allah. That's the beauty of Islam.
How do you make sense of your mind that you're using? Your aql, this intellect that Allah has given us. The ability to understand the world, to analyze things and to understand how things work. To reason, to understand the truth of things. How do you make sense of your mind that you're using? You know, your aql, this intellect that Allah has given us. The ability to understand the world, to analyze things and to understand how things work, to reason, to understand the truth of things.
So back to the topic of the video, I want to look at the interpretation of Islam's biggest scholars regarding the first verse of the 68th chapter, the chapter of the pen. Now, just to be clear, the verse in question reads this: Noon, which is an Arabic letter, Noon, by the pen and that which they write. As we can see, the verse itself doesn't tell us much. What is meant by the letter Noon? This is where the scholars have come in to tell us their opinion on the matter based on the early narrations. Now, let's begin with Ibn Kathir. He states this in his tafsir for this verse. He is quoting Tabari, the other great mufassir, who in turn is quoting Abdullah ibn Abbas, Muhammad's cousin and a widely respected authority on Islam and the Quran. The first thing God created was the pen. He ordered it to write. It said, "What shall I write?" He said, "Write the fate of everything." So it wrote what will happen from that day until the day of judgment. Then he created the noon, which is the whale. Then he raised the water and created the heavens with it, and laid the earth on the back of the noon. The noon moved, and so did the earth, so it was fixed down with mountains. So let's recap here for a minute. God makes a talking pen, not some typewriter or laptop, has a conversation with this pen. The pen writes everything that's ever going to happen, presumably including me making and uploading this video. So much for free will. Then God creates a big fat whale and then lifts the waters at ground level up to create the sky. That's probably because they saw a blue sky and thought it was water floating above us, an idea that seems supported by this verse. Then the flat earth is placed on the whale's back. The whale doesn't like this heavy thing on it, so it tries to shake off the earth above it. But being a smart God, he decides to fix the earth in its place with mountains. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of creation. Who needs the Big Bang and evolution when this obviously makes a lot more sense?
Now, brothers and sisters, unfortunately, there's approximately 1 billion atheists on this planet now. We used to think it was a minority position, but it's considered the 5th biggest religion in the world. And there has been amazing and interesting and fascinating mass movement since post 9/11, based on certain leaders, books, and an online narrative. And they have formed what I would call the tsunami that is trying to engulf the hearts and minds of theists, people who believe in religion, specifically the Muslims. And our initial responses was, you know, leave them alone. It's not a big deal. Just carry on doing what you're doing. But unfortunately, 10 years on, 12 years on, we have an increase of atheism in Europe by millions. According to the London Times, you have 250,000 Muslims leaving the religion as a result. And their movement is working. They have the Atheist Alliance global network. I was in Pakistan the other day. Not literally the other day, but a few months ago. I was in Lahore. LUMS, the Oxford University of Pakistan. And there's an atheist movement going on there. You have atheist students challenging the kind of core beliefs of Islam. You even have an atheist group in Saudi Arabia. Sheikh Sajid, he WhatsApped me and said, there's something going on, Hamza. There was a private gathering of ulama to deal with the 6% and growing atheists in Saudi Arabia. In North Europe, you have 80% of populations that do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have, for instance, in Britain, the fastest growing religion is atheism. And I'm going to tell you why I consider it religion in a minute. So the point here is, brothers and sisters, this is a force to be reckoned with. And obviously, we should not deal with this force in a discourse that you can describe as debating. Because debates is not da'wah. Debates is social engineering.
هنفضل ننقد الفكرة meeting at a local cafe in the city of Alexandria. These young Egyptians are discussing an unusual and even taboo topic: atheism, the rejection of a belief in God. They want society to acknowledge their atheism rather than reject it. Their aim is to be seen as a legitimate part of Egypt's community.
I don't want to leave Egypt. I want to be an atheist in my country, with my family and my job.
Even talking publicly about atheism can provoke hostile reactions. Atheism is still widely unaccepted in Egyptian society, and many believers find it an alien and disturbing concept.
I'm having a problem with my father. He cannot accept the fact that other people might have different beliefs.
Most of these atheists are young. Social media has made it easier to connect with like-minded people and to combat the sense of isolation. Some have had to reject deeply held beliefs after growing up in conservative and religious environments.
I learned the Quran by heart. My father is bearded and my mother covers her face, and so does my youngest sister. My brothers are also bearded. I was raised in a religious environment, but after reading a lot, I rejected religion and even the interpretation of the Quran.
Statistics on the exact number of atheists in the country are difficult to obtain, but some religious leaders believe that extremism is playing a significant role in pushing people away from Islam.
As much as we detest atheism, we also detest extremism and clinging on to formalities which push people away from religion. We blame the extremists for making some people think that religion is inflexible.
The atheists we met say they want people to speak up, but their deepest hope is that a new Egypt will give them the freedom to discuss their ideas openly without social stigma. Hadia Al-Alawi, BBC News.
A Pew study published in 2015 reported that the number of Americans who don't affiliate themselves with a religion jumped by almost 35%. That's about 72 million Americans who consider themselves irreligious and may be atheist, agnostic, or spiritual but unaffiliated. And worldwide, 13% of people considered themselves convinced atheists, according to a 2012 Gallup International poll. So why is atheism more popular than ever? Well, first, it's important to understand that atheists are distinct from the religiously unaffiliated. Atheists firmly believe that there is no higher power. This is not to be confused with agnostics, who are uncertain of the existence of a higher power. However, many people use the two terms interchangeably. For much of history, atheism has been considered a taboo around the world. In medieval times, it wasn't uncommon for atheists and other free thinkers to be burned at the stake for heresy. And even today, atheists can still be executed for their beliefs in about 13 countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Despite their growing popularity, negative stigmas and stereotypes also continue to affect atheists and the religiously unaffiliated, even in developed countries like the United States. However, there have been growing trends away from religion in America and many other Western nations. Pew has attributed the change to the maturing millennial generation, of whom more than 30% identify as non-religious. Comparatively, only about 11% of the silent generation, born between 1928 and 1945, is non-religious. Other news sources have noted that for millennials, the rise in atheism has corresponded to increased acceptance of things like gay marriage and abortion. Conversely, many religious institutions still don't accept these practices, and this conflict of ideas could indicate that millennials are looking away from religions which exclude themselves or their peers.
So well, I'm joined by Katie Harrison, the Director of the Faith Research Centre at Comres, and by Andrew Copson, the Chief Executive of Humanists UK. Very good evening to you both. So Katie, individually we're becoming more secular, it seems, and quite rapidly as well. Is that a good thing?
I think it's fascinating to see the significance of this statistic, 53% of adults in Britain identifying as no religion. I think it's the highest that we've seen. We saw 51% in 2009, and then between 2010 to 16 we saw a fluctuation between 48 to 50%. So we are around halfway and have been for a little while. And I think that certainly when you do more qualitative work with many people, what you find is that perhaps historically some people, older generations, have ticked the box Christian, identified as Church of England in much of Britain, particularly in England itself, because that's what you do, don't you? Whereas we have a different approach perhaps today, and younger people certainly, where they're actively deciding when they're doing a survey or being asked, yeah, actually, who do I think I am? Do I identify with a religion? And perhaps a bit less of the nominal culture that we might have seen in previous generations. So that's one of the things that we often find when we probe further in asking these sorts of questions.
Same question to you, Andrew. A good thing, I mean, must be from your point of view, that more and more people identify with no religion whatsoever.
Well, I think it's definitely good, as Kate just said, that more people are thinking about this and are being thoughtful. And obviously I think that the world we live in today, more and more people are finding that religion is not something they can believe in intellectually. It's not something that gives them any basis for their values. It's not something that matters to their sense of meaning. So to that extent, I think it is a positive development. Of course, I don't just want people not to have religion. I want them to have positive humanist beliefs.
We'll get on to the point, and I know I know it's more about the role religion plays in society as a whole that you're concerned about. But just staying with the individuals for the time being, Katie, it's not as if people, well, it is as if people, I suppose, are becoming less formally religious, but there's still an awful lot of spirituality out there, so to speak.
Yes, there is, and there's a lot of belief, and there's a lot of behaviour of different kinds, which perhaps is less formally linked to an identity now, a religious identity, than historically it would have been. So, for example, we asked people earlier this year about beliefs in life after death, that sort of thing, and 21% of people who identified as no religion believed in some sort of life after death. So perhaps those people were not completely unbelieving in everything. They had found a way to make sense of the world that's perhaps a bit more syncretic. They pick and choose different things that they believe in or different things that they do that help them to make sense of the world and embrace a sense of spirituality, whereas historically we would have seen much more formal alignment with a religion and therefore a sense of what that doctrine and theology was and behaviour that goes with that. But equally, we'll wait to see as the rest of this British social attitudes data comes out.